Thank you very much for the intro, and thanks to all the students for really pulling this all together. I hope some of you had a chance to attend the Kennedy School half of this yesterday, which I'm told went extremely well. And particularly appreciate that you're here despite the clock time change, which is very confusing to small minds like mine. Fortunately, I have my kids to keep me honest. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's a real pleasure to welcome a lot of friends, some who are sitting over here, especially to Sajjan, our guest this morning. I'll just say a word about the effort at the university to connect to emerging markets and developing countries worldwide. This is something that, at least the way I reconstruct history, has been going on since the mid-1990s, when different schools began to tentatively start to expand and do things institutionally globally. Harvard has always been active globally, but institutionally we began to do this in the mid-90s. And HBS led the way in some ways by setting up these research centers, first in Hong Kong and then in other places. Fortunately, thanks partly to the vision of the new leadership at the university, to Drew Faust, our current president, and our own leader, Nitin, sitting in the back, who has been unabashed evangelist for this global expansion, appropriately in my view. We've all taken a frontline role in this. And one of the nice things that's happened, nice from my perspective, and I think from the universities, is that HBS and Nitin have lent me to the university for some time to build the South Asia Institute. And that's a non-trivial thing because we're always short of faculty around here, so it's not without significant opportunity cost. But the good news to report on that is that in 4 years, our South Asia Institute has grown from being an extremely tiny thing to something that really encompasses the entire university. We have literally several hundreds of students who connect with us every year, who go back and forth to all the countries in the region. 100 faculty from across the university engaged extremely deeply, and probably another 300 or 400 who are episodically engaged with South Asia. And South Asia here is defined as, of course, centered for us in Mumbai, because we have a physical facility in Mumbai and one opening in Delhi this summer, but also embraces everything from Kabul to Rangoon, which really is the way that those of us who grew up in India think of South Asia, whatever it's worth. And really a feet on the street presence. And frankly, in my role as running that, I'm essentially copying what HBS did and replicating it, except at the level of the entire university. So what we try to do is bring people together who would not otherwise come together. In other words, if there's something that's the province of the medical school, we leave it to the medical school. If it's HBS's show, we leave it to HBS. But if it's something that we can catalyze intellectual exchange between institutions on the ground in South Asia, as well as the different silos, as you know, exist at Harvard or any large organization, we're happy to be the catalyst for it. So we will bring design school people and doctors together, along with engineers and big data specialists to work on urban redesign in slums in different places. We will bring lawyers and activists together to talk about gender violence. You've all seen the horribly unsavory stories about gender violence around the world, particularly in South Asia. So we've taken a frontline role in catalyzing that debate in India in particular in the last few months. Always happy to collaborate, always nice to see people from across the university. So let me stop with that and welcome you here, and quickly say a word to introduce Sajjan, who needs no introduction. Sajjan Jindal, who I had the pleasure of meeting maybe a decade ago when his kids were starting to go to college. We're very pleased that one of your children is here now. But Sajjan and Sangeeta, his wife, have been friends of the school and friends of Harvard for some time now. And we are very grateful to you that you've come to address us this morning. There's a very happy occasion in their family, I should say, 2 grandchildren born recently, so please accept our congratulations. And one of them has a birthday today, but he's still here. But he runs the JSW group, which again needs no introduction. It's a leading player in infrastructure, energy, steel, all sorts of other affiliated industries. In India, as you know, or as in developing countries like India, it's very hard to be contained into one space. You have to solve many adjacent problems to make your steel plant work. And so Sajjan and his team of managers have been extremely competent in navigating the complex environment in which such entrepreneurship has to unfold. It's of course part of the group that his father started in a very visionary manner some time back, the Jindal group. And it would be just very appropriate for you to kick this conference off with describing some of your views of what you see unfolding in the new India and your own role in it. So without further ado, please welcome Sajjan. So Sajjan is going to make about 15 minutes of comments, and then I will join him and try to moderate a small conversation. Sajjan.
Good morning. Good morning. And thanks. I would like to first of all thank the student community here, especially who has organized this fantastic event. I've been hearing about it from my colleagues, from my peer group who have done this in the past over here. I've made some notes to talk about the India's goal to global leadership. So I had a great dinner last night, which was hosted by all of you at the Taj. Met a lot of speakers, a lot of students. Very exciting. To talk about India's path to global leadership, as you all know, last year we had this fantastic change in government. After a long time, after 3 decades, Indian electorate chose a single-party government. We've been suffering. I've been I've been in business for 30 years, and I've never seen a single party after '84, after the assassination of our late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Rajiv Gandhi took as the Prime Minister, and that was a huge mandate. But unfortunately, somewhere in the middle of his term, things went wrong, and he couldn't take right decisions, couldn't drive the country forward. And since then, we've been seeing a mandate which was never clear mandate, and we couldn't take country forward. For a brief period, when Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister in '91, when India was actually in very, very difficult circumstances fiscally, at that time, Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, was the Finance Minister, and things really moved along in India. They were delicensed, and industries were allowed to expand the way they wanted to. So that was a brief moment when things were very good. And then in 1999, 2000, things became better when NDA government, which was again Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Prime Minister, and things were a little bit better for business at that time. Since then, UPA1 was also a bright spot in between 2004 and 9, and after that we had a really bad period from 9 to 14 till this new government came in. So the way this new government led by Prime Minister Modi came in is basically based on a huge growth story. He sold the dream to the Indians that we will build this country, we will develop this country. So one good news that we've got now in India is that today our people have chosen or voted for somebody who is promising growth for the country. As against in the past, because I also belong to a family where my father was a member of parliament, my brother till recently was a member of parliament, my mother is member of legislative assembly. So we are also a little bit, you could say, a political family. So I've seen this very closely, that how the people choose their representatives, and most of it in the past, I've seen it over the 20 years since we went into politics as a family, that how people choose from caste-based, from religion-based politics to now development-based politics. So this is a very good news for India, that today we are practically looking at things from a developmental agenda. And this is what Prime Minister Modi sold to the electorate, and they all chose him with this clear majority. Now in India, which is, you could say that 70% people or 60% people live in rural part of the country, and our majority people are poor in India. So therefore, any decision which is taken by any government has to be slightly left of the center. So there is always this tendency that the governments can be much more left than they are supposed to or they should be. They should do that, but in the sort of desire to come back to power, to come back to the government, they try to become too left. And in fact, recently the finance minister Arun Jaitley made a comment that we must not go so left that there is nothing left of the economy. So which was a fantastic comment that he made. So now this government, Prime Minister Modi's government has made four big announcements before coming to the government, and now he's already implemented that. So the four big announcements that they have made is the Jan Dhan Yojana, where they want to include everybody who does not have a bank account to open a bank account, so that they could all the subsidies could be driven through in the form of cash through these bank accounts rather than giving in the form of kind. I don't know if you recall, when Rajiv Gandhi became Prime Minister in '84, he had made a very big statement, and which said that only 5%, 5 paisa goes to the actual user, consumer. When 100 rupee is given, then 5 rupee comes to the final beneficiary. It's only 5%. So the idea of this Jan Dhan or UID, unique identification thing, which has been done, is to provide the subsidy in the form of cash, and no more giving these freebies or stuff which does not get to the right consumer. So therefore, this will be a very big thing, and this will be a social inclusion, which will be done through the Jan Dhan. Second big announcement, which Prime Minister Modi is personally very interested, involved, committed, passionately, is Swachh Bharat, which is Clean India movement. And I don't know how many of you follow Mr. Modi on the Twitter, but he keeps on tweeting about his Swachh Bharat campaign, and because what he believes, and which is quite true, that India being a very large country, nearly 20% of the world population lives in that part of the world, Swachh Bharat can play a very important role from a point of view of health, from the point of view of clean cities, which will give lot of benefits to the economy, and that's why he is very keen on Swachh Bharat. The third point is Digital India. That is his big push, that he wants to connect India digitally. He says that even if we don't have food, but there should be, or there would be, a situation where the whole of India and every Indian would be connected digitally. What this will do is that it will enormously improve the productivity of our country. Since the advent of the cellular telephone in India, the productivity in India has dramatically improved, because everybody, whether he is a rickshawala or he's anybody, he carries a mobile phone and he's connected all the time. So that's improved the productivity dramatically, and that's what he's doing now. There's a big program to make India digitally connected. And his fourth big theme is Make in India. So, when he first launched it, so I also could not understand why he's making an English mistake or something. Normally we all say Made in India, but he wants to call it Make in India. So, but later on we realized that, he wants to do a lot of things in this way, and make India the big manufacturing hub for the world. And every product should be Make in India. So he's right now, personally, he's driving the defense sector, because India is one of the largest defense importer equipment in the world. So his idea is that why should we import? Because all the defense factories are in the public sector, within the defense, under the defense forces,
And that actually does not work. So now he is trying to privatize, trying to bring in private sector to build these defense producing plants. Besides these four big steps that he has initiated, he has taken action, he has announced in his budget as well as other things. Other areas where the government, the present government is working is to skill our people. You know, he called it Skill India. That is because every year we have this astounding number of youngsters coming into the job market. Nearly 12 to 15 million people every year they come into the job market. And that's a huge task because it's not easy to have 15 million people absorbed in jobs. So therefore, idea is that we have to have, we must increase the skill level of our young people who are coming into the market. Not only the education, but the skill level has to increase. So therefore, there's a lot of emphasis on skilling our young. His another idea is to build 100 smart cities. As urbanization is increasing in the country, more and more people are moving from the villages to the cities. Therefore, our cities are not growing in a very organized manner, and they are growing organically, and there is no real great planning. So his idea is that let us put 100 smart cities and build new cities in the country. Could be satellite cities to the existing big cities, or make fresh cities in areas where there will be demand, there will be need. So that's another big movement or big thing that he's doing. Then he has talked about housing for all by 2022. So majority of India lives in villages which is not having a concrete house or a cement built house. They are all thatched roofs and stuff like that. And also in the cities, nearly 20-25% of the cities are living in slums. So his idea is to bring in this housing for all by 2022. Now these are all very big statements. How much of it will get fulfilled, I am not too sure, because you know, in India we have had many times this kind of excitement. Whenever there is a new government takes over, there is a change, we all get very excited that okay, this time they are going to make a big change in the country, and this time we are going to find new ways of managing. But in Mr. Modi, I think now we are all feeling very comfortable because he is extremely committed about it. So, and I believe that if a person is committed, if he is passionate about whatever he wants to do, and he's honest about it, then there is a good reason for him to succeed. And therefore I think this time around, India is likely to succeed in all these endeavors. Another area which has plagued India in the past in a big way is corruption. As you know, we had a number of areas where we have suffered on account of corruption, and that really pulls down your growth and the confidence from where the international investors look at India. So this government has also looked at it and has in the right earnest has moved very swiftly on the natural resources, auctioning of the natural resources. In the past, natural resources were allotted based on either first come first serve basis, or it was pretty discretionary in the past. So now they have made that it will be all done through auction. And on the coal mines, whoever is keeping track on that, things are moving very rapidly, very nicely, and many coal mines, nearly 25 coal mines have already been auctioned and been taken by various companies, and total of 200 coal mines are going to be auctioned over the next 2 or 3 months. And that would be a fantastic thing for the industry, because everybody will get coal. And today India imports nearly 200 million tons of coal, whereas India sits on huge deposits of coal. And as per the study and my own assessment, the coal will lose its relevance in 20 to 30 or maximum 40 years from today, because new technologies are developing very fast, and coal is a dirty fuel, so therefore it will lose its relevance. So therefore, whatever the government is doing to get rid of the corruption and the question marks on the administration is being done away very quickly. Now coming to, so these are the big things that the government is moving and trying to create environment where the investors will feel more comfortable. And in the last, since the new government has taken over, the stock markets have moved nearly 40% up. So, but on the ground, as I speak now, there is not a great deal of change on the economic front. But given that the entire emerging markets, if you look at the BRICS nations, Brazil, China, South Africa, or even Russia, every country has huge, some problem or the other. China is slowing down, Russia has this Ukraine issue, Brazil has stagflation, South Africa has corruption issues. India is the only bright spot where the foreign investors are now very keen, and they have already invested a lot of money. A lot of money is coming in. Our foreign exchange reserves are highest ever in the history of India. So in the independent India. So therefore, these are good times for India, and I think it's a bit too early to judge economically whether this government has succeeded. But I would give it at least 2 years before we really start to see a real change on the ground in India. So that's on the economic front. Coming to the global leadership, on the political front, I think Mr. Modi has done extremely well in the last 9 months. When he was going for oath ceremony, he wanted to send a message across the world, and he invited the entire neighboring country heads of states, including Pakistan and Bangladesh. And all of them, all the head of states, they all came to his swearing-in ceremony, which was a big statement saying that India has arrived. And he actually made a personal effort to see that all these leaders came to the oath-taking ceremony. And so that was a fantastic initiative that Prime Minister Modi took. Similarly, he went to Australia. He invited the Chinese premier. He went to came to United States, and now he's likely to go to Germany and England in the next month. So I think he has taken on the foreign policy side, which was actually sort of no man's land in the previous government, has been taken up pretty actively by Prime Minister Modi. So that has again been a fantastic thing as far as the government of India is concerned, because they have really moved very quickly. I should tell you one very interesting incident about the swearing-in ceremony. So I met Prime Minister just after the swearing-in ceremony, and we were just chatting about one-on-one. We were chatting about this swearing-in, and I complimented him, and so he said that, what is the way Indian system works. So I was to meet President of Maldives, and my MEA, the Ministry of External Affairs, all the bureaucrats, they were telling me that what these people did not do. I mean, so there were 10 points that they did not do this, they supported China on this, they did all negative 10 points. And they said that, sir, you must tell the president that they must do this for India, they must do that for India. And what I did, as Mr. Modi tells me, that what I did when this meeting was on with the president, and all the MEA officers from his country and from Maldives were sitting, he said, I told the president, I don't remember the name of the president, but he told the president that, Mr. President, I will make this port for you, this airport for you. What else you want? How can I help you, as a country? Because Maldives is a tiny little country. So, and the president of Maldives got so excited that he got up and he hugged Prime Minister Modi. So he said, this is the change that I have made, that I want to give, I don't want to take from my neighboring countries. So I think this is what India needs to do. India is by far the largest nation in that region. So this is a fantastic thing that he did. And recently I was, while on the flight, I was reading about that he has offered to Mauritius, to Seychelles and Maldives that we will build your defense forces, your naval forces, because they want to protect the Indian Oceans from the Chinese influence as in India. Whereas in the past, Sri Lanka, which is our neighboring country, Chinese have come and built the ports there. They have built the power plants in China, in Sri Lanka. They have built the roads in Sri Lanka. Railroads are being built by the Chinese in Sri Lanka, which actually India must do. Similarly, in Myanmar, they have all the gas that Myanmar has gone to China, whereas India needs a large amount of gas, but it all went east rather than coming west. So I think this government, that is what I am very excited about, is that this government is on the right track and doing things to become a global leader. You have to give in and you have to support your neighbors. You have to become leaders in your neighboring countries, and that's what they have done. Now, when I say all this, I mean, there are a lot of challenges in India. It's not going to be very easy. Of course, we have seen in the Delhi elections how things have just turned on its own head, and that has had a huge impact on the existing government. In the budget, huge amount of changes were made last minute because of the Delhi elections, and so therefore that's one big challenge we face in India, because we have so many poor people that live in India that we have to be very sensitive about them, and therefore it's a very tight ship that Mr. Modi has to run. So therefore, this is what I actually wanted to say. And Tarun, I think this is what
I got the signal to come and sit here.
Okay.
So as I said, I follow the instructions of the students. So,
right.
But that was really wonderful, a nice encompassing view. I'm sure the students would like to hear a little bit during the Q&A about how your company also is dealing with some of these changes, because you gave a very nice macro overview of what's of some things as you see them and the optimism and so on. What I think would be good to do is let me pose one question to you, and then I'd like to open it up and just see if we can engage the energy in the room rather than us carry on. Mm-hmm. The question is this, and it goes to your engagement with the state. The state historically has been, the most polite way to say it is asleep at not providing the public goods that it should be providing, whether it's security or water or what have you, or marshaling the natural resources of the country. But now that it's awake, you still see sort of hesitant moves. As you say, the facts on the ground have not changed yet. There was much enthusiasm about privatization, or what we euphemistically call disinvestment, mm-hmm. And that does not seem to be happening either. There are some visible moves against corruption, but the Aam Aadmi is still very angry about it, as you saw with the Delhi elections that you alluded to. So how do you as an entrepreneur and as a leading businessman deal with the realities on the ground, and in particular engaging with the changing contours of the government and the state?
Yeah. So as you know, India is, there are so many states and centers. So there is this kind of tension between states and center if they are not belonging to the same party. Mm-hmm. So that's one big challenge that we face all the time in India. Now, but the initiatives which this government is taking, and the way the speed at which it's moving on, for example, the coal mine case is a case in point where they started to move in the month of October, and by March now they've said that by 31st March all the mines would be auctioned and it will be all done with. So that's something which is really very, very, very good. It's a concrete step that has been taken. But on the other, and similarly the telecom spectrum also right now is underway. The auctions are underway. So the initiatives, the steps this government is taking, which is concrete and are not losing real time on that. So I'm quite optimistic that this government will be able to fix the issues. But India being such a large country and have gone through this difficult period for a long period of time, so expecting that in 6 to 9 months or 12 months we'll be able to fix it is very difficult. I mean, as you said, Aam Aadmi is not satisfied or is very angry about it, which we saw in Delhi elections. That's quite natural, because Mr. Modi, when during the elections, he promised the moon to the people because he was desperate to come to the power, because he knew that the only way to fix problems is if you are in the saddle. If you're not, so he promised whatever was possible or not possible. He promised the moon, and now people are realizing that, well, this will not happen. Whereas the global economy has really helped. If you see our inflation, our consumer inflation, it's all come down dramatically. So he's been extremely fortunate. His stars are good or something, So that's been very, very helpful to him. But in spite of that, people are feeling that, we are not getting what we're supposed to.
We saw this story in Brazil when Dilma took over in her first round. The stars were well aligned and her first term was fabulous. And the second time, the stars are not so aligned and it's been a real disaster. Yeah. So hopefully we have a better course to plow. Let me do one thing. Let's open it up. If you could pose your questions to Mr. Jindal and keep them crisp. Don't make a speech. And then we can see if we can get a conversation going. Yeah, sir, go ahead.
2 questions. The coal auction is obviously...
Just ask one question.
Coal auction, how are the coal auctions administered? Were they transparent? Being in the mining sector, I would love to know your experience on dealing with the government and probably your comments on revenue leakage.
Yeah.
That happened for many decades.
Yeah.
So I think this morning I was discussing with Dean Noria about this coal auction, and I had put a question that the one good thing is that it's very transparent. It's all web-based, the whole process, and everything is quite is announced in advance, and everybody can participate. And they've set up the criteria who can participate, what are the criteria that who can come in first and second and third, like that. So it's completely transparent. There is no question mark on the transparency of the process. But the only question mark that I have is because it's on an auction basis, so person who is more able can buy. So the bigger will be grabbing all the resources. So what happens to the startup companies who are wanting to buy these blocks? They are going to suffer. So that is one thing which the government needs to fix, that how do we tackle these startup companies. So that's one issue which is in my mind. I've discussed it with coal minister, that how do you want to settle this matter. People who are not able to compete, what happens to them? So that's one issue. But otherwise, it's a very transparent process, and I'm very glad that this is happening, because we being in the steel industry, we are the largest steel producer in India, and we don't have a single ton of our own captive mines. We buy 100% of our mineral resource to make steel. So because of various reasons, because of the corruption, because of whatever you may call it, we could never lay our hands on any mines. So now it's going to be fixed, because now the new ordinance, the new bill which has been passed in the parliament, is to auction all the minerals.
So this issue of leveling the playing field for entrepreneurs coming in is something that I hope we come back to. Sir.
What can you say that is encouraging for smaller and mid-sized, in this case American companies, wanting to do business in India, and in the back of their minds knowing how complex it has been for so many years? What good news or promising news is there?
So I think the government is very keen, and they have been very vocal about it, to talk about the ease of doing business. They are trying to resolve many issues. The laws are being made simpler. In fact, the Prime Minister made a comment that I have promised that there will be 1,800 every day of my rule. I will cut out one law from the system. So, and I heard him. He was in Mumbai and giving opening remarks at some library opening or something, or some 100 years of a library or 200 years of a library in a high courts. And he said that I've already done 1,600 laws have been abandoned or removed from the system, old archaic laws. So I think the ease of doing business, and there will be a lot of attention and a lot of support system provided to the foreign investor in India.
So on that note, one issue that has been acted on concretely that I find very reassuring working at small companies is the bankruptcy processes, at least as a move in the right direction. Earlier, it used to be that if you started something, whether as a foreigner or a local company, and you had to wind down the operations, it was essentially impossible.
Yeah.
You'd end up spending 6 years in legal wrangles, which is a huge deterrent. And that, at least there's some strong administrative move to
They're bringing something like Chapter 11, equivalent of Chapter 11 into India.
which in principle existed on the books, but never actually was acted out. So if that can change, that would be good. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Given that the government is in a majority in the lower house, but hopelessly out of majority in the upper house, what's a reasonable expectation from what they'll be able to get done in 5 years?
Yeah, so this is one big challenge in front of the government, and this is one issue which even the government is trying to grapple with. It will take 2 years before they take majority in the upper house as well. For these 2 years, either they will come out with some sort of a joint session of parliament, and majority of the bills then they will push through in the joint session. Otherwise, they will have to live through these ordinances in the meantime. But the issues which were very important and which were really plaguing the economy, they have already come out with the ordinances, and they are moving ahead business as usual, which is good news. Though politically it is being criticized in a big way. Everyone is criticizing it, but I think government has to move and do their business on the day.
The gentleman right at the back, yeah, go ahead.
Sajjan from GE Research. Quick question. I think most of the India's growth has come from the service sector in last 10 years, and now with Make in India, will probably come from manufacturing sector. Is there any plan in the government for a campaign like Innovate or Invent in India, where Indians can command much more premium than you can in the service or in manufacturing industry? If you look at the number of papers coming in the leading scientific journals, very few contribution comes from the Indian. So having set up a national lab structure like you have in US, where 10 or 15 national labs can contribute to that, and that would require government taking initiative to compensate the researchers better to demand that growth. Do you think any such possibility exists in near future?
I think it's a very valid, very good question, and I wanted to take up that point about India, that we need to really look at how we create Innovate India. Like Prime Minister must also start talking about Innovate India and build R&D facilities and spend a lot of time and money on research and development. But the good news is that now the big corporates in India have become of good size corporates, and not necessarily that government need to really spend money on this, because my personal view is that government, the money the government spends, only about 20% really gets to the effective. The effectiveness is only 20%. In the private sector, when they spend, then 70-80% becomes effective. So I think this is one area where India has to really wake up and do things. Corporate sector is doing, but it's still just at the surface, and we need to really spend big monies. I mean, there are American companies which have got big research centers in India. GE has in Bangalore and other companies, but Indian companies are still lagging behind. We have to pick up from there.
On that issue, I mean, one of the things that happens quite extensively here in this country is connections between industry and the academia. And your family's been involved in, I know there's a Jindal School of Law and some other education institutions. Just like this gentleman in the front, do you have anything hopeful to say about the evolution, apropos the catalyzing of innovation? Do you have anything hopeful to say about the connection between the academy in general and industry in India? Not the GEs, but the Jindals in some ways, the local companies.
So it's happening more and more. But still not of the same magnitude or anywhere close to that level. But the relationship between the industry and the academia has to increase much more. And I guess both sides are to be blamed. I see the amount of interest or amount of initiative that the academic side takes here in the US or in Europe In India, even our academic institutions, they are also not as active to involve the industry along with them. And same is the case vice versa. Industry is also not, they will have their own setup, but they are not, it's not very cohesive situation in India. But I think now, for example, at JSW, we are really pushing, we are working with IIMs, we are working with IITs, and in Institute of Science, Bangalore, we are really trying to push our relationship with the institutions a lot and working towards that.
It's a very important area. Ma'am?
Yeah.
Physical right, Johns Hopkins University. Could you comment on your experience working with the public sector in infrastructure delivery, especially how easy or difficult has it been to go through the procurement process, get clearances, contract management, risk management especially?
So public sector infrastructure, as in roads and sorry, even energy. So it's not a very complex process. It's all laid out quite clearly. We haven't in our power sector, JSW Energy, for example, we haven't faced much of an issue on that. But it is a slow process. It takes a long time before it can be. But the whole process is pretty clearly laid out, and you have to drive through it. Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am, with the green, yeah, go ahead.
So I feel like a lot of Indians here, right, working in US national corporations, when you meet them, you're like, someday I want to go back to India, like someday I want to do something for my own country. But you see those little barriers, like corporate culture, you feel like, I don't know if this is the right time. So how much do you see that culture going from a more hierarchical base to a more collaborative culture that attracts talent from America back to India?
Yeah, I think this is, again, a very... the issue which is also very close to my heart, and I in fact wanted to say here that most of you who are studying here must, after you finish your studies, must look back home and come back home and provide leadership back home. India is not the same, and things are really improving. I'm very optimistic about India, and the culture in the organizations are really evolving. And I don't see a great deal of difference between American institutions, corporates, or Indian corporates, the forward-looking Indian corporates. And by coming in there, you may initially find a little bit of a resistance or a little bit of a let's say different culture. But then you can the real leaders are those who come and change the culture. So it's not very difficult. But you have to have that passion that you're going to go back home and you want to do for your country and make your country, as a leading country in the world. So it's all possible.
Thank you.
There's a lovely cartoon upstairs that this young man Shreyas, who is visiting, is a cartoonist from Bombay. He's visiting across the river, but there's a cartoon that I saw when I walked in, and it says something like, I think it shows a caricature of Prime Minister Modi doing the
Swachh Bharat,
jhadu,
yeah.
But saying if we can change governments, why can we not change mindsets? And I think that is a little bit of the fundamental issue here. How can the symbolism help us change these mindsets? Yeah.
And on that, so at a recent conference in Mumbai, which Padmas organized called Mumbai Next, he wanted to discuss the financial industry, how to make Mumbai especially a financial hub. And when all these CEOs were sitting there, the first thing they said was, to make Mumbai and India therefore a financial hub, you want to improve the lifestyle. And that was what they said over sort of these financial changes that you would expect to understand. So while it's really interesting that we have all these new economic laws coming in, what do you have to say about a lot of the sort of draconian laws coming in that we're seeing, this crackdown with censorship and the recent deep ban? How do you see that correlating with the development story that we're seeing in India? And I think that sort of closely relates to this idea of corporate culture.
Yeah. I think the Mumbai Next event, which Fadnavis had led, basically is primarily to improve the infrastructure of Mumbai. Because to make it a financial hub, first of all, the infrastructure has to be improved. Now there are a lot of draconian laws which are being introduced today, which even the corporates, India is not very happy about. But I think that's the government is also trying to play to the galleries, because after the Delhi elections, there were a huge sort of feedback that the government got, that during the elections, Mr. Modi had promised that all the black money will be brought back into India, and everybody will get some 100,000 or I don't know how much dollars in their bank account or something like that. Nothing of that sort has happened, because so therefore these are the huge issues which came up, and that's why they in this budget they announced all these draconian laws and stuff like that. But the Mumbai Next as in program was a fantastic thing, and they really Fadnavis is very, very keen to fix the Mumbai infrastructure issues, and I hope they do it, because Mumbai could be one of the leading cities of the world, because it has got everything in there to be one of the best cities in the world.
But this issue that he's alluding to without saying it so explicitly, so let me give voice to one of the issues that has not been brought up yet, which is how does Mr. Modi, with his development agenda, which I'm sure he intends to push through, how does he balance some of the pushback from the, I don't know what the right phrase is, religious right in some sense, that sees a very different way in which society should evolve than perhaps this gentleman, if I may, implicitly is articulating. How do you see that tension actually playing out? Because sitting over here, you sort of hear about the balancing act.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious what you can say about living through the balancing act again as a business person.
Yeah, no. So that's why it's not very easy to maneuver things in India, politically, because you have this huge population which is below the poverty line. Big percentage of Indians live in villages who are based on agriculture, who have been who are looking for free electricity and a lot of freebies. So it's very hard to bring parity or bring any real solution. So you have to. So the only way in India, I think, which this government understand, is to grow the pie, and let these things happen. Collect more taxes, but make the whole GDP grow the GDP. Mr. Modi actually also announced that in 20 years, 20 by 2, 20 trillion economy, from 2 trillion to 20 trillion in 20 years. This is also his one of these big theme, that if we grow at 9.5% a year, then in 20 years we could be a 20 trillion economy. Today, United States is 17 trillion economy. So if that happens, then all the problems can be sorted out.
Lady at the back here.
Thank you so much for coming. China's infrastructure investments in Myanmar escalated in conflicts in the past few years, stalling certain projects. As one of the most environmentally responsible leaders in the global business community, how do you see India's growing soft power and other emerging economies being sustainable?
So, India is, in that respect, I would say India is in a very interesting times where India need not expand or need not grow business as usual, like the way Chinese GDP or Chinese growth took place over the last 2 decades, where they burnt 3 billion or 4 trillion tons of coal every year, 4 billion tons of coal every year, and polluting all their cities and the whole country. India is now looking at renewable energy in a big way. Recently there was a big conference in Delhi where Prime Minister spoke and our Minister for Energy spoke, and they've got commitment from global leaders to build renewable solar-based power industry. 160,000 megawatt has been committed by the industry there. So I think India would really grow the, so to say, sustainable way. That's the focus of the country. And more and more support is being provided to go the renewable way.
Ma'am, you have the last word. It better be a good question here.
My question is sort of abstract. India has, I believe, 5 or 6 cows per every person. So what is this?
Sorry, cars or cows? Cars.
Cows.
Cows.
Yeah,
per person?
At one point. Maybe I'm wrong.
Is that true?
I don't know.
What do you think would be a good vision? I'm from actually Gujarat, and I've seen still a problem there. I just went there 2 years ago.
I thought India has a huge amount of people, and so you're saying 5 times that number is cows?
This sounds like New Zealand and the sheep.
Sounds like New Zealand and sheep. Exactly, yeah.
Okay, Sajjan, you better think of a good answer.
I have no answer for that. But I should tell you my personal anecdote about this is that when I grew up in a town which is close to Delhi, a small town, and when I moved to Mumbai after I finished my education in Bangalore, did my engineering, and my father asked me, would you go to Mumbai, because that's where our new business or new factory is coming up. I said, yes, Dad, I don't mind wherever you send me, but I need some solid job, where I can show my talent. So I came, and behind me a truck came with 4 cows. And my father said that you have to drink, and in Mumbai cows are not allowed. So we had to keep the cows about 60 kilometers outside Mumbai. And my father said that you will drink everyday milk. My mom actually told my father that tell him to drink every day, continue to drink milk from the cows every day. And so what you're saying is quite true.
Yeah, but as you can see, some of us are so anchored to our cows.
Yes.
All right, well, this has been a wonderful, it's not quite fireside, but the figurative fire is here. But a wonderful conversation with Sajjan on a range of issues, innovation, entrepreneurship, corruption, etc. Thank you so much for joining us and kicking this off.
Thank you.